Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have a bunch of comets right now flying into the inner solar system, and this is bizarre because of how many it is. It's literally a swarm of comets. We are tracking 7 different objects. 2 of them have already performed their perihelion. The rest will do so over the course of the next few months by the end of the year. And so this is looking like it's going to be a very dynamic end to 2025, at least as it relates to cometary activity, and that likely will influence solar activity because we see a lot of connections between comets flying into the inner solar system and enhanced solar activity like big solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and more. We have one of these objects, that's 3I Atlas. We're not really sure if it's a comet or not. It's more of an interstellar object. It has a lot of bizarre characteristics to it. The other 6 are clearly comets. One of them, in fact, was just discovered on September 11th. It had its perihelion the next day on the 12th of September. And so that is C2025 R2 Swan. And what's so interesting about Swan is that it's kind of interacting with 3I Atlas in some ways. And so let's go forward in time to the 21st of October. We have that right here. This is when there will be a superior conjunction with 3I Atlas from the perspective of Earth. And so we see the Earth right there. We see 3I Atlas right here, and the sun's in the middle. So superior conjunction is when something's on the other side of the sun. You will notice that this comet right there, C2025 R2 Swan, is only about 0.25 astronomical units away from the Earth. That's in fact its closest approach to the Earth. And so I've been talking about this superior conjunction perihelion transit of 3I Atlas from the perspective of solar activity. It's likely to enhance solar activity because of that complex dusty plasma surrounding 3I Atlas, how it's interacting with the heliospheric current sheet, the solar wind, and more. And well, it was like, okay, is this solar activity going to be Earth directed or more towards 3I Atlas because it's on the other side of the sun? Now we have a comet right there close to the Earth and along the ecliptic plane. So you look here, C2025 R2 Atlas is also only very slightly inclined off of the ecliptic plane. That's the plane that all the planets effectively hang out on. And so 3I Atlas is also only 5 degrees off from that ecliptic plane in terms of its inclination. And so this is a very dynamic transit that we have coming up on the 21st of October. And then on the 29th of October, we have the perihelion of 3I Atlas. So the appearance and discovery of C2025 R2 Swan is adding a lot of dynamicism to this entire time period. But there are other comets as well that we are tracking. And in fact, one of them will be much brighter than all the other comets, and that will be C2025 A6 Lemon. It's going to get very, very bright around its perihelion early November. But let's go down the list of these comets, their perihelion and their closest approach distance to the sun. And to do that, we have to go back to C2022 N2 Pan-STARRS, which already had its perihelion. In fact, that was back on the 31st of July. We see it right here, and its closest approach to the sun was 3.82 astronomical units. So this is one of the comets that's further out, but still within that orbit of Jupiter, getting fairly close to the inner solar system. It already has perihelion, again, July 31st. The next one we discussed, that was C2025 R2 Swan, and that perihelion was on September 12th. We can go back to that so you can check it out. Here is the 12th of September, and you'll notice it right there, basically on the ecliptic plane and also right outside the orbit of Mercury. So here's the orbit of Mercury right there, very close in. Its distance is only 0.5 astronomical units away from the sun. The next perihelion for one of these comets is from 414P Stereo at 0.52 astronomical units on September 27th. So let's find that. We'll go to the 27th of September. That one's getting quite close. Again, 0.52. And we see 414P Stereo right here. And so it will be below the ecliptic plane. And if we go forward, we see that it's continuing to fly below the ecliptic plane. So originally came in from above, and it is now swinging down like this, but its perihelion will be on the 27th of September. So that's coming up pretty rapidly. Then after that, we have a perihelion on October 8th. And this is from C2025 K1 Atlas at only 0.33 astronomical units. So let's go forward to October 8th to check that one out. And we see how close it gets right there. Also below the ecliptic plane, it was along it earlier and it'll be also afterwards. Very, very close to the sun and even like within that orbit of Mercury, but below. So that's then on the 8th of October. We had that superior conjunction with 3I Atlas with Swan, that comet that we just found, being closest to the Earth on the 21st of October. Then the perihelion of 3I Atlas is on October 29th. That will be just inside the orbit of Mars. And so we can check that out. We see it here. If we go forward in time, we see 3I Atlas zooming in just within the orbit of Mars. On the 29th of October is its perihelion. We can see that pretty clearly right here. And then it will continue on. And then we have the brightest comet of the bunch. At least that is what is expected and forecasted. And that'll be from C2025 A6 Lemon on November 8th. And so let's go to that. We can go to the 8th of November. And we will see this comet get pretty close to the sun. Its closest approach is 0.53 astronomical units. And one of the reasons it's going to be so bright is because of how its orbit is lined up in relation to Earth. And so we see Lemon right here. It's above the ecliptic plane. And if I go there, maybe you can see a little better. That is its closest approach to the sun. If we go forward, we will see that it's cutting now into the ecliptic plane afterwards. But if we go back to the 8th of November, we see that it is in a very favorable position to see from Earth. And so it's expected to get to an apparent magnitude of about 4 or 3, which is very, very bright. You'll be able to see that with the naked eye. Right now, you may be able to see C2025 R2 Swan with a pair of binoculars, definitely with the telescope. It may brighten more in the days ahead. We're not sure. Maybe it becomes visible to the naked eye. Again, we don't exactly know. It does have a very long tail that's stretching out 5 times the distance of the moon in the sky from our apparent visual perspective. So that's 2.5 degrees. And it's already interacting with the solar wind. And it is possible for solar activity like coronal mass ejections to hit a comet and actually disconnect the tail. The tail of a comet is made up of dust, it's made up of ice crystals, it's made up of gas, and if you have a gas in space, you naturally then have plasma because some level of that gas will ionize into a plasma. Some of that plasma will deionize and recombine into a neutral gas, and you'll have some percentage that's dependent on the irradiation of the sun and also just the solar wind conditions, or if it's an interstellar space, other conditions that contribute to its gas and plasma makeup. Well, you also have different elemental compositions and more. So these sort of comets with these very long tails flying close into the inner solar system really change the electromagnetic dynamics of this area around our sun. The closer you get to the sun, the stronger the electric circuits are and the magnetic fields and more. And we also know that there's an inward flowing electric current that spirals in along the ecliptic plane. So things that are further out do have an energetic influence on those closer in because that electric current is always flowing inwards to the sun, whereas the solar wind is flowing out of the sun. Now, after we have that close approach from Lemon on November 8th, at 0.53 astronomical units, and that's going to be very, very bright. We then have our final comet perihelion of this group, and that's 240P NEAT, and that's on December 19th at 2.12 astronomical units. So that is further out, but we see it right here, and this is a cyclical comet. It's actually pretty close here to the solar system at all times. Within the orbit of Jupiter, sometimes it goes slightly outside of it, as you can tell right there. But that's a little bizarre. Typically, comets aren't that close in and stay that close in. But we do have 240P NEAT there performing its perihelion again on December 19th at 2.12 astronomical units. So a ton of activity in our inner solar system for the rest of 2025 as a result of this swarm of comets. Perhaps we find more. We have a huge flyby of an asteroid tomorrow. We're picking up more and more objects daily, but this is what we know thus far. Let's check out their light curves because some of them are going to get bright enough to see. Here we have the light curve of C2025 R2 Swan, that comet that was just discovered that performs a very close flyby of the Earth at just 0.25 astronomical units on the 21st of October when we have that superior conjunction of 3I Atlas. And well, we see its apparent magnitude right now is around 7 to 6. So it's just outside the limit of the naked eye, but perhaps it brightens a little bit further. We have the estimated light curve based off of its ephemeris data, its orbital data, but these things often will kind of defy that to some degree. And so we see that it is going to be staying about the same brightness according to that through the middle of October, but then it will start to go down, but we may get to brighten within the limits of naked eye detection, and that would be fantastic because this comet has a super long tail at 2.5 degrees currently. So if you were to look at the sky, you see the full moon, it's 5 times the width of that in the night sky if you were to see that. So that's incredible and really shows that there are these powerful forces at play electromagnetically within our solar system that aren't just the sun or the planets or coronal mass ejection, because this object being fairly weak structurally and being composed of all these volatile elements can degas and then ionize and now form this super long bundle of electric currents and more. How that interacts with the solar system is going to be very, very interesting. It did already perform its perihelion on the 12th of September. It performs its closest approach to Earth again around the 21st of October. And the next comet to really focus in on as it relates to being able to see it with the naked eye would be C2025 A6 Lemon. And that is because it's expected to get to an apparent magnitude of about 3.5 or so. It may be a little bit better than that, and maybe a little bit less. But here we see that light curve, and here we see the measurements thus far lining up pretty nicely with that. And so this right now currently is about 8 at the brightest, which is not visible to naked eye. But as it gets closer to its perihelion in November, that's expected to get all the way to a little bit better than 4. And so that is expected to be very, very bright, visible to naked eye. It'll be interesting to see how long of a tail it generates being close to the sun. And again, that's going to be in a favorable position for everyone to view, especially in the northern hemisphere, because it's going to be above the ecliptic plane. And so this may be the best comet of the bunch for us to see, be able to go out, evening sky, boom, there it is. So that is C2025 A6 Lemon. Now, something that would be amazing to see would be a tail disconnection from one or more of these comets. We have this comet here in 2007, October 3rd. We see this tail disconnection. Look at how that coronal mass ejection from the sun as it swept by just completely disconnected the tail from that comet. And well, because we have so many comets right now flying in, and the fact that it is solar maximum, and also perhaps how comets trigger solar activity, well, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a tail disconnection event or multiple over the next few months. And so that would be really cool to see. Something else to watch would be the C3 coronagraph view of the sun over the next few months, because we may see some of these objects appear in the coronagraph. It depends on their orbital configuration, but it is possible. This is what that could look like. So here we have Comet Lovejoy in 2011. This is a sun grazer comet, which basically guarantees that you're going to see it in the coronagraph. But look at how it flies in and then it flies out like that, and it did survive. Now, what you'll notice is that its tail is always facing against the direction of the sun. And so you have it behind there, and then when it's flying out, the tail will still be behind it. It's not trailing the direction of movement of the comet. Rather, it's the radiative pressure of the sun, the solar wind, that creates that tail and then pushes that out behind it, no matter its direction of movement. So this is a really good example of that. We see how when it got close, it didn't really have a tail, and then as it got further away, it reformed that tail right there, and it actually has multiple tails to that. So you see it start to form multiple tails. And one of those could be an ion tail, a dust tail, even like elemental tails, and more. So we have a lot of dynamicism for the rest of 2025 now because of this swarm of comets. And I would say the big heavyweight of the bunch, which probably isn't a comet, is interstellar object 3I Atlas. And the reason why I think 3I Atlas will be the heavyweight of the bunch as it relates to the possible interaction with the sun and the promotion of solar activity is because it has been very, very active now since we first observed it way out beyond the orbit of Jupiter, which is pretty anomalous. And so we don't exactly know the nucleus size of 3I Atlas. The upper estimate right now is about 46 kilometers in diameter. It could be something like 5 kilometers or less. We really don't know. But we did measure its CO2 coma. So basically this bubble of gas and plasma surrounding it. And back then, that was a few weeks ago, that measured in at about half the diameter of the sun at 700,000 kilometers across. So here is the diameter of the sun, about 1,400,000 kilometers. This CO2 coma was calculated to be about 700,000 kilometers based off of Sphere X imagery. It's only going to get bigger as it gets closer. And so I would not be surprised if this dusty complex plasma bubble that's surrounding 3I Atlas, which is starting to form a bit of a tail as it gets closer to the sun. I would not be surprised if that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and actually at some point becomes equivalent in size to the sun. Of course, the mass of this is insignificant in relation to the mass of the sun, so it does not have the same gravity field, but it will still interact with the solar wind, the interplanetary magnetic field, the heliospheric current sheet, and all these other electromagnetic dynamics within the inner solar system. And it's not getting super close. That is the one thing. It's cutting within the orbit of Mars, but it's not cutting within the orbit of Mercury, for example. That would be quite dynamic. But 3I Atlas is going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to continue to off-gas and release all these dust particles and grains and ice and more. And then we're going to be crossing that trail of debris in 2026. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens then, because this is of interstellar origin. Because it's traveling close to the ecliptic plane, we will swing into that location in its orbit in 2026. And we don't know the makeup of 3I Atlas, at least as it relates to things within our solar system. I guess it's kind of like home, right? There's enough mixing for things to be normal, but this could be from a star system 500 light years away, 5,000 light years away. It could have been traveling now for billions of years, and this could be the first star system that's interacting with. We don't know. So we don't know what it contains, what that involves, how it's going to interact with us, when the Earth passes through that debris trail, what that means. But in general, 3I Atlas is the big, most dynamic heavyweight of the bunch, I would say, for the rest of 2025 as it relates to these objects in our inner solar system. But we do have all these other comets as mentioned. And so now it's really looking dynamic for the rest of the year. And let us not forget that comets have traditionally, for thousands and thousands of years, been seen as significant omens of change, good or bad. They often precede significant historical events and battles. And in general, it seems that there are these sort of paradigm shifts that occur right around the transit of visible comets, especially those that are visible for a long duration in the night sky. And so we have now this swarm of comets flying in. Don't know what that means, but we know that the world right now is a pretty crazy place, that there's a lot of moving pieces in action. We have this explosion of AI. I'm not sure if you notice all the AI slop videos out there now on YouTube. It's really ridiculous, but this is just one example of how AI is changing things up. And so they bring in a very powerful change and resonance to the morphic field of information and consciousness to our solar system. And so this fall is looking very dynamic. If you like to work more directly with these energies, then I recommend you pick up some spirituality from the website earthevolution.com/store. This is an all organic herbal tea blend that we make and mix. My father and I, we run earthevolution.com. Very simple, 4 ingredients. It's chamomile, passion flower, mugwort, and purple lotus flower. And so this helps you to rest, relax, sleep, but also promotes dream activity, makes dreams more vivid, memorable, helps with dream recall, perhaps will even give you a lucid dream, but it's also just good, for example, for meditation or for like a yoga nidra or for a normal yoga class, whether that's a yoga flow or a yin yoga. Spirituality is a fantastic all organic herbal tea blend, the best seller on the website, and really will help you connect to these more interstellar energies. And I also do want to point out the mugwort is anti-parasitic, and that's a huge problem that we have right now in our collective, this epidemic of parasites, both human parasites, right? Like the elites and the people that are just draining society dry, but then also parasites within the body, energetic parasites. This is a big issue. The mugwort in there is also naturally anti-parasitic. I would highly recommend you pick up some spirituality. And also, this is just a general time of enhanced creativity. We are in solar cycle 25. There's more synchronicities. And so if you want to enhance your creativity and really like put that to use, then I can recommend herb coffee. This is 50% single origin organic shade grown Peruvian coffee. And then it's also made up of organic chicory root, organic dandelion root, and 12.5% of it is organic lion's mane mushroom. So no dusting of the mushroom powders. It's a huge amount of this tea blend. You wouldn't want more than 12.5% because lion's mane is quite potent, but that will help you get focused in the flow. It also will promote creativity, and also it's neuroplastic. So if you drink herb coffee and then launch yourself at something, whether this is learning a new skill, or let's say you're writing something, or you're going through a bunch of research, this will help you build those new connections and set you up for success down the line. So these are the products that I would recommend the most with all these intense energies for the rest of 2025, spirituality, and then also herb coffee. But there are a bunch of other products available at earthevolution.com/store. In addition to the just released Interstellar 3-Eye Atlas cotton long sleeve shirt. Has some artwork on the back, which was painted by my father. And this is very, very comfortable to wear. You can get your 3-Eye Atlas on, promote those interstellar vibes. All of these products and more available at earthevolution.com/store. Thank you all so much for watching. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that like button to help the channel grow. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. I cover what's happening with the Earth energetically. This is earthquakes, volcanoes, Schumann resonances, also solar activity, space weather, planetary resonances, these sort of cosmic factors, comets, everything. We discuss that on the channel, bring it all together. I release videos almost daily. So I hope to see you around. Wishing you all a great rest of your September, and I'll see you all in the next video.